on to my next deck tech. For this one, I actually just picked a random deck out of my deck box, and it's actually a really interesting one. I'm kind of excited actually to talk about this because it's I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but when I saw the Ninth Doctor, I had to build this deck. Obviously, it was a tweak on the precon. I picked up the precon while I was actually deployed. Out somewhere, and so I got to play with the precon a bunch, and I actually really liked how it played out. So this is actually an upkeep deck. It's literally built around the Ninth Doctor untapping and giving you extra upkeeps, right? Slightly worse than Obeka, because Obeka I think is a little easier. She just automatically gives you so many upkeeps when she does damage, but this deck is really cool, and there's a lot of really cool cards in it, and I feel like a lot of people are gonna enjoy this one. This is a moderate power level deck. I would say probably 7 or 8-ish. And so maybe 8 or 9. There are some pretty high powered cards in here, but it's not fast. So it's very, very, very diddly. So this is not the type of deck if you want to just like straight up win the game out of nowhere. There's not actually any combos. Yeah, there's no real combos in this, and I'll kind of explain some of the win cons as I go through it. As you'll notice, I'm actually filming from a different part of our game room. My girlfriend actually has the whole table taken up by House in the Hill. Yeah, they're playing the Legacy version of it. So, but anyways, I'm sorry that this video is coming. I don't think I filmed it in about a month. Had a lot of stuff pop up, so yeah, wanted to get back to filming something, so yeah. Anyways, not back, onto the deck.
Okay, everybody, so we're going to try this without the light on and see what ends up happening, because it looks like, yeah, you can actually read the cards pretty good from this angle. So this deck is the Ninth Doctor. If you've never seen him, he's a hasty creature for 3, and whenever the Ninth Doctor is untapped during your untap step, you get an additional upkeep step after this step. Now that's very critical. You can't just untap him and get an upkeep, right? Which would make him absolutely bonkers. But he's actually pretty bonkers in this deck. And so the overall theme of this deck, and I should probably do like themes from now on. Let's see if people can, yeah, that way people can see. The overall theme of this deck is copying, and I guess going through dimensions, multi-dimensional stuff. So kind of the whole plan here is to make a lot of copies of various creatures in this deck, or artifacts, or enchantments, or what have you. So, and everything in here has some sort of upkeep trigger for the most part. So starting out, we got Thassa, God of the Sea. Main reason she's in here is the scry, so I get multiple scries during my upkeep if I want to, my multiple upkeeps, and then also she can make the Doctor unblockable. So his big thing is that he has to be able to tap, so whether it be through attacking or other means in this deck, we got to get him tapped as much as possible. Now, this is one of my primary win cons, Terror of the Peaks. This is one of my proxies. So, Terror of the Peaks, obviously, anytime a creature enters the battlefield, you get to deal that creature's power to any other target. And so, our goal here is, through various means, make a lot of copies of Terror of the Peaks, which will close out games pretty quickly if I can get 2 to 3 of these. I've got Joyer of the Gitu, that way I can put cards in suspend, so she puts cards into suspend with 4 counters on them, so I can do stuff like Terror of the Peaks. It's like an incoming threat, but what it does is it'll, I forecast things a little bit, but when I get up to like 2, 3, 4 upkeeps, means that anything I put into suspend with her will instantly come out the following turn, so granted that does paint a target on my head. Sinister Concierge. This is a pretty cool card. So whenever this creature dies, you may exile it and put 3 time counters on it. If you do exile up to 1 target creature and put 3 time counters on it, each card exiled this way gains suspend. So when this dies, it's like pretty much a free Swords to Plowshare in a way, except that she'll come back in 3 turns and yours will come back in 3 turns, right? And you would think that that's a pretty big downside, but removing giant threats just for this dying and blocking is actually a pretty good thing, and usually I'll get her back within a turn or 2. So usually I get her faster. Phyrexian Metamorph, this is just one of my copies, so I can copy stuff. We got Sphinx of the Second Sun. So, wonderful thing about this, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you get an additional beginning phase after this phase, which means you get to untap, upkeep, and draw. So, cool thing is, I actually did have a game where I made 5 copies of this card, and so I got 5 copies after combat, plus my doctor as well. I was able to untap him, right? So that gave me an additional upkeep trigger, which was awesome. So, yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then we got Sakashima, again, another way to make copies. Dominus of Fealty. So this is a kind of a slept-on card that a lot of people don't realize how impactful it is when you have multiple upkeeps. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you may gain control of target permanent until the end of turn. If you do, untap it, and it gains haste until end of turn, right? So, obviously, if I have multiple upkeeps, I'm going to grab the biggest things on the board and just start swinging them at people, generally doing a lot of damage or a lot of shenanigans, and usually people don't like me untapping with that on the field. Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch. So this will bring back a number of spells. So at the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery at random from your graveyard to your hand. So the cool thing is, when we get to the instants and sorceries, you're going to see there's a lot of impactful things in my graveyard, and so people do not want me getting those things back. So again, kind of the whole goal of this deck is that everything is a threat if I get to untap and go to my upkeep. Which generally is pretty funny. It's a weird janky deck. Bonehorde Dracosaur, so at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. So the cool thing is, it's pretty much like a draw 2, but I'll get to draw that many things, make a bunch of dinosaurs and treasure tokens, which is a pretty cool effect. And then, it's a 5/5 first strike body. We've got the Dragon Master Outcast. So at the beginning of my upkeep, if I control 6 or more lands, make a 5/5 dragon for 1. So, when you got multiple upkeeps, it's multiple dragons. Chronozoa, so this guy right here, he has Vanishing 3, so if you remove the 3 counters off of this, what happens is that it splits into 2 and makes a copy of itself that does the same thing, right? So when you have multiple upkeeps, right, because you have to go one upkeep after the other, with Sphinx of the Second Sun or copies of things, you can end up with a massive board of Chronozoas really quickly, which is super hilarious, but usually these don't close out the game because they don't gain haste, which kind of sucks. But it at least gives me a bunch of blockers, So, Tempt Doctor, this is another way to put things in suspend, and if anything, I get to remove time counters off of stuff once I get up to like critical mass and mana, and allows me to get a bunch of stuff. Plarg and Nasari. So this is actually another game ender in this deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles the top card of their library until they exile a non-land card, just like you would with Atali. And an opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the cards exiled this way, among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost, right? So everybody's going to Atali the top of their deck, then you pick somebody, and then they're going to pick a single card you can't cast, and then out of the other 3, you can cast 2 of those, right? When you get multiple triggers of this can easily win the game, right? I've had it happen one time where I had 5 upkeeps, and it was just bonkers. And usually they would pick my cards that came off the top of my deck, because they knew that I was going to try to make copies of it or whatever it might be. So usually they wouldn't let me use my own cards. But yeah, when you're casting Expropriates or dumb crap like that off the top of people's decks, it's usually pretty funny. Clever Impersonator, another copy. We got Ragavan because I needed a bit of, and this is one of my proxies, I needed a bit of ramp in this deck because it is kind of slow. We got Fate Spinner as a kind of a stacks piece. Basically, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player chooses draw main phase or combat phase. That player skips that instance of each phase, right? So either they skip their draw, they skip playing anything, or they skip going into combat, which is really strong for this deck because usually I don't want to get hit in the face. And then a new inclusion here, because I did not realize the initiative ticked up during your upkeep. Caves of Chaos Adventure. So this puts me in the initiative, and then whenever it attacks, exile the top card of my library. If I've completed a dungeon, you may play that card this turn without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, you may play that card this turn, right? So play a card or a land for free, which can be pretty good because I should go through a dungeon really, really quickly. And so I haven't gotten to play it with the new initiative ads, but hoping that it works out pretty well. You know, I did tweak this deck a little bit. So some other upkeep shenanigans that we have in here. So we'll go through all the enchantments. We got As Foretold, putting counters on this to play stuff for free. You know, always a good thing. We got Thopter Spy Network, because for every upkeep, I'm going to make a 1/1 Thopter, and then whenever my artifacts deal combat damage to a player, I'll draw a card, right? So, pretty much, what is it called? Reconnaissance mission? It's a reconnaissance mission on a stick, but it's also going to give me a bunch of blockers or a bunch of attackers, however I want to do it. Paradox Haze, this is pretty much mandatory in this deck. Additional upkeep, right? So once I have these two out in the field, it's automatically 3 upkeeps, which can start spiraling out pretty fast. This is a fun one, Endless Evil. So you enchant a creature you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except the token is a 1/1. And then enchanted creature dies. If that creature was a horror, return Endless Evil to its owner's hand, right? So if I attach this to Terror of the Peaks and I go to my upkeep, it's probably game, because usually I'm going to make like 3 more token copies of Terror of the Peaks, and then I'll play one thing and I can kill somebody. So yeah, this card's just dumb when you have multiple upkeeps. I love this card. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So again, this is one of my proxies. So this is in here primarily as another ramp target, but also it gives me draw. And then again, when I flip over to Kiki Jiki on the back, another way to make copies, right? So if you're noticing, big theme here is making copies of stuff. So this is my alternate win con, Mechanized Production. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of Enchanted Artifact. Then when you control 8 or more of that, you win the game, right? So this is kind of it's an alternate win con in multiple ways. Either it's a way to get like more treasures to win the game, more Thopters, or if anything, I get to make a bunch of token copies of something crazy, which when we get to the artifact, you'll see some stuff in here. And that's probably going to win me the game anyway, so just really, really good card in here. And so this is a recent ad, Passionate Archaeologist. So anything that I play from Suspend, anything that comes from Exile, I've noticed like I was having a distinct disadvantage because I was having trouble closing out games. Well, I figured this card would actually help me out quite a bit. The few games that I've played since I've added it, I have not gotten it on the field, but I just have a feeling like when I need it, I'll want it, you know? So, or when I want it, I'll need it. But yeah, I feel like this will be a really, really good card in this deck. Court of Embereth. So when it enters, you become the Monarch, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 3/1 red knight creature token. Then if you're the Monarch, it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. So again, when I have multiple upkeeps, I'm making multiple knights, and then I'll do multiple damage triggers, which is real good. This is another recent ad, Wild Wasteland. This is from the Fallout. So skip your draw step, but at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Then you may play those cards this turn. So again, this was kind of a way to play off of the Passionate Archaeologist, but it also plays off of Bonehorde Draxor, because again, I can get multiple triggers of this. Now I do have to be careful because it is not a it's not a May ability, right? So if I have this in Bonehorde in play, and then I get like 3 or 4 upkeeps, I'm like exiling a huge chunk of my deck, and I have to play it that turn, right? So I do have to be careful when I play this and the Bonehorde. Usually I'll hold on to this unless I feel like I'm falling behind. So it's kind of like a fall behind card. Loot Dispute. So this is again another initiative card. So when I play this, you take the initiative and create a treasure token. Whenever you attack a player who has the initiative, create a treasure token. And then whenever you complete a dungeon, create a 5/5 red dragon. So way to generate more treasures, because I'm obviously going to want to be getting the initiative back from my upkeeps, right? And then on top of it, it's a way to make more dragons, because again, my plan is to get through the initiative and then have multiple upkeeps. And yeah, just like start making more dragons, right? Because I should hopefully be completing more and more dungeons. Extravagant Replication. So at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token copy of a creature Token that's a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. Right? So this is a cool one because it's kind of like the Endless Evil, where I just put it into play, but instead I'll just be like, oh, hey, I want to make like 4 copies of Sakashima, which is now going to make 4 copies of this, blah, 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 right? So really, really cool. I love this card. And when I get it on the field, it's always silly. And then Heuristic Study, because you got to have Heuristic Study in a blue-red deck. Drawing cards is always good. Next, we have the artifacts. So we got a Midnight Clock. Again, another ramp piece, and then also because you have multiple upkeeps, you'll get the hour counters real fast, which means you'll get to go ahead and wheel away your hand pretty quickly. We got Chimmel, the Inner Sun. Love, 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 love this card. It's so good. It's great when I get it in this deck because it makes my stuff uncounterable, but also then I get to do the Discover trigger, which I think almost a majority of this deck is 5 or below. And then on top of it, this is a great target for mechanized production, because if I can make multiple copies of Chimmel, that gets done very, very quickly. We got Soul Talisman because ramp, and then also because of the suspend ability, I'm going to be taking more of these off. Replicating Ring, because when you have multiple upkeeps, getting the Replicating Ring to go off is a dream of mine. I've yet to have it happen, but this will stay in the deck, because if anything, it's a mana rock. Now this is a fun one, and everybody, I always have to explain what this card does. Riversong's Diary. So whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell from their hand, exile it instead of putting it in their graveyard. So that's a very powerful ability, because there's a lot of Spellslinger decks that love to recur their spells. Well, I'm taking that option away from them. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more cards exiled under Riversong's Diary, choose one of them at random. You may cast that without paying its mana cost. Now this gets a little sticky, because obviously I have counter spells in this deck, and I play a lot of decks with counters. But once I get to 4 spells underneath this, and I get to an upkeep, there are some spells under this, which you'll see when I start showing the spells, that can start winning me the game, because especially if I get to Time Warp multiple times for free. Hasn't happened yet, but if it ever happens, it's going to be a glorious day for me. I've always been that guy that says I don't want to take too many turns, but in this deck, it's a time walking deck. I might as well kind of go into it a little bit. We got Thought Vessel just for more ramp, Talisman. So Springleaf Drum is really good in this deck because it is a way to tap my Doctor without attacking, but also a ramp piece, right? So this is actually one of the pivotal pieces along with Paradise Mantle. So I try to get either of these in an opening hand if I can. If anything, that way I just have a easy way to tap the Doctor down without attacking someone, right? Because he's only a 2/4, so having a clear path for him to swing through is kind of sketchy sometimes, but obviously just having the free ability to tap him is super strong. Now, Darksteel Reactor. Now, this card spiked a lot after I built this deck. I bought it when it was like $9, and I think now it's close to 30. But this is an instant win if you can get it to 20 counters, and it is indestructible, right? So every upkeep you get to put a counter on this. So this is one of my win cons, alternate win cons. Granted, I have never, ever had this go above 10. I think 10 is the most I've ever had. Usually, I kill everybody. That's generally my game plan. But I have it in the deck because there is one day where I'm going to run into like a stacks deck that I can't do anything about, and having a Darksteel Reactor might actually win me the game. We got more ramp, and then 2 more critical cards in this deck. So first we have Strionic Resonator. Copy target triggered ability you control. Choose no targets for the copy. I'm obviously going to want to copy my untap trigger and get more upkeep. So this is basically another upkeep, right? And then Portal to Phyrexia. Now everybody knows what this card does. But the big thing here is that at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to put target creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Multiple upkeeps. So this is a win con all by itself. Play it, hopefully get to my next upkeep, and then now I'm just going to start dredging all sorts of crap out of the graveyard and hopefully swing and win the game. Now I've yet to play this card. It's been in the deck since its inception. I have yet to ever get it out because generally speaking, I'm stuck in a loop of tootling about. But also the cool thing is I'm generally not spending the 9 mana on it, because I'm going to try to get it out with either the 10th Doctor or Joyra. So if I have it in my hand with Joyra, I'm going to go ahead and put it on Force Suspend, and then hopefully it'll go off. But yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, it gets countered, but hey, I'll get in a counter war with people. Now, I said I was going to talk about the spells, so there's some very incredibly powerful spells in this deck, and so, yeah, I mean, it's a Izzet deck, so generally you're going to want some sort of spell slinginess. So, starting off, we got, good old Vandal Blast, always good to have. We got Chaos Warp, because, why not? It's removal, and it's on theme. Blasphemous Act, because, yeah, every red deck should have this board wipe. We got a Reality Shift because, again, I wanted more targeted removal, and there are sometimes problematic cards you have to get rid of. We got Swan Song because, yep, great counter. And then we got this card, Inspiring Refrain. Came in the precon, and it's such a good card. After Suspend 3, you'll draw 2 cards and then exile it with 3-time counter. So it's a way to have a recurring spell that just keeps coming back, and it's draw 2. So anytime this goes off, if I can get to 3 upkeeps, it's great, because pretty much at the beginning of my turn, I'm going to draw 3 every turn, which is amazingly good. We got Arcane Denial, because again, I said I have a lot of counters in here, because there are a lot of times people want to counter the things or remove the things that I'm playing, so I wanted ways to stop that. We got Jessica's Will, because again, just such a good card. Generally, we're trying to get the Doctor out like turn 3-ish. This is a deck that you're going to want to try to play your commander pretty early, but usually you're going to want to have your other setup pieces on the field first, some sort. But Jessica's Will, if I can get this off on turn 3 after I play the Doctor, it puts me in a strong position, because usually I can get something else out that will capitalize on having multiple upkeeps, and then it puts people kind of in a bind, because yeah, I mean, a lot of my triggers and stuff are on enchantments and artifacts. It's not all creatures, so like a board wipe doesn't necessarily... It takes care of the multiple upkeeps, but it doesn't take care of the thing that's giving me the things most of the time, so... this is Fierce Guardianship. This is a proxy version, really strong when you're trying to get your commander out fast. Psych Rift, because why not? Then we got Mana Confluence, and this was a recent ad. I ended up taking out a cheaper counterspell, and the main reason I did that was because I wanted the ability to bounce multiple targets. I did find there was several games where like I could take care of one thing, but then there'd be like problematic things around the board that I want to take care of. But if I can get this underneath Riversong's Diary, it's not a dead spell. That was my big thing, because I was finding a lot of the times under Riversong I would end up with like Arcane Denial and Swan Song and somebody else's counterspell, and I'd end up casting those. Well, I wanted to have a counterspell that like did other things, so Mana Confluence fit that bill pretty good. Ancestral Vision, because drawing 3 for 1 is great. We got Windfall, because, again, really good, especially if you get it under the Diary. And then Rousing Refrain. So this is a card that a lot of people don't know about, but this is functionally a Jessica's Will at the beginning of, every 3 turns. And so add a red for each card in target opponent's hand. So just such a good card. Generally try to get one of the refrains pretty early in the game, because if I can get these in Suspend and start getting my multiple upkeeps, it gets real silly real quick. Mystical Tutor, this is a proxy, paper proxy, yay! But there's a lot of spells and stuff I'm going to find in this deck. Arunicus's Vile Duplication, because again, this is primarily a copy deck, and this is probably one of the best copy spells that you can get. And Sea Double, again, another copy, but the cool thing about this one is this spell can't be copied, but choose one. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you may choose both. Copy target spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token, and then create a token that's a copy of target creature, right? So the cool thing is, this right here will actually, if opponent's like dredging or whatever, I can actually get 2 copies of something, because I'll make the copy of the thing on the stack, and then I can copy the copy. Which is really strong in pretty much functionally a deck that wants to do this sort of thing. Just incredibly strong, because I can be like, all right, Terror of the Peaks on the stack, Sea Double, targeting Terror of the Peaks, and then make the token copy of the copy, and it gets really dumb. And I said I had Time Warp in here. There you go. Really strong. And then last but not least, Ill-Timed Explosion. I feel like this is a card that's kind of slept on. Draw 2 cards, then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, Ill-Timed Explosion deals X damage to each creature, where X is the greatest mana value among the cards you discarded this way. It is functionally another Blasphemous Act, which I feel like red-blue is really, really missing. And so in this deck, usually drawing more cards is great, and then there's a lot of targets in here that I don't mind throwing them in the graveyard. You know, like I might want to throw away the Portal to Phyrexia just to do 9 damage to everything, right? But usually it's a desperation play, but it's just a really good one because it is a May. So if anything, it goes underneath Riversong's Diary, and then every turn I can draw 2 cards off of it, which is really, really good. And then last but not least, we got the lands. So we got Training Center in here, Command Tower. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, Gallifrey Chamber is really good because, I can cast my Time Lord with it. Reflecting Pool. Yeah, I don't think that there was anything crazy in here. Oh, yeah. This one came in the pre-con. I think it's a really good land. This is another example of the Midnight Clock, except for this one, you have to remove the 12 time counters from it by paying 2 mana to functionally wheel yourself. But it is really, really strong, and once I get 1 counter on this, usually I can proliferate it or, get multiple upkeeps. Yeah, I'm going to be tapping this thing a lot, so might as well get a little bit more benefit out of it. And then, yeah, Urza's Saga is really good in this deck because, there's a lot of 0 costs, because the cool thing about it is that I can go find, like, if I have Soul Ring out, I still have other targets. I have Soul Talisman. I can go find my Paradise Mantle. I can find my Spring Relief Drum. So there's actually a lot of targets in this deck versus, a lot of people just use it to go get a Soul Ring, and then that's it. So once this pops off, there's, like, tons of different targets in here depending on the situation that I need. And, yeah, it ramps pretty good. So, but that is my Ninth Doctor deck. So let's go to the outro.
So I hope you guys really liked my Ninth Doctor deck. And so you might be wondering, why don't I have a partner in this deck? I will say that initially I tried to do a teamer deck, and it did not work. Or is it teamer? Whatever one has the white. I can't ever remember. But it had Rose Tyler, which came in the deck, and I did try initially to do a white, red, blue, and I found that the white actually didn't add a lot when you're trying to do a upkeep trigger or like there was a couple spells I had in there that had upkeep triggers, but the white ones weren't nearly as strong as the red and blue. So I ended up cutting out the partner, and then so that's. This is like iteration number 3 of the deck because I've since like swapped out a few more cards since I did that swap. So, but you could add in the little doggo that's blue. I would not recommend making this any more colors. I've seen the Ninth Doctor kind of lumped in with the green partner, but like I don't know, I don't feel like green would add very much to this other than like more ramp, and I don't know if you necessarily need that. So. Overall, this deck, it can be a little fiddly, like most Izzet decks. You're taking lots and lots of upkeeps. There's a lot of things to try to keep track of. It's very spell slingy, drawing a lot of cards. It does all the things Izzet does, but like with the twinge of like, I'm going to be doing janky stuff like trying to trigger this thing like 5 times on my turn and then hope that you don't board wipe me or remove this very specific target. It's kind of funny seeing how much like the people fear me getting multiple upkeeps. Paradox Haze eats a lot of Beast Withins and a lot of Generous Gifts and a lot of whatever else removal spells, but overall, it's a really, really fun deck. Really recommend it. The pre-con was a lot of fun. The big problem with it was it kind of had a lot of fiddly bits and a lot of stuff that just wasn't really impactful. And so, like, again, this has taken multiple iterations, but this is kind of like where I'm at with the deck right now. I'll post the link to Moxfield down below. I believe it might not have a few of the recent upgrades I've made to it, but I'll make sure that I go through that and just like you guys can see like a previous version of it, right? But as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Gonna try to do better to make more stuff for the channel, right? Probably do another board game review, maybe like later this week, just to kind of do like a catch up. Like, hey, here's two things, or maybe I'll do a video review of some painting. I don't know, but we'll see. Anyways, thank you guys so much again, and see you guys next time here on Paint Games and Cardboard.